they made. That covenant was a promise, and God was backing up his end of it. He said, if you'll follow me, I'll bless you. But they stopped following him. And so his blessing was going to end. All right? Let's move down to point B there. That one of the inclusions of their spiritual harlotry was idolatry. Did I give somebody the next verse there? Hosea 8 and verse 4.
They have set up kings, but not by me. They appointed princes, but I did not know it. With their silver and gold, they have made idols for themselves, that they might be cut off.
Okay. And let's see, is there another one in there too? Yeah.
13 verse 2.
Uh-huh.
Now they sin more and more, and have made for themselves molded images, idols of silver according to their skill. All of it is the work of craftsmen. They say of them, let the men who sacrifice kiss the calves.
Okay. Well, that kind of portrays a more, I don't know, kind of a graphic picture, doesn't it? Of people who not only make these idols, but kind of cozy up to them and want to kiss them. And all right, well, you think about what Hosea is trying to show here. He says the people in Israel have made their own gods. They've made their own worship. Back there in verse 4 of chapter 8, where he said, they set up kings, but not by me. The leaders were not people that God had chosen. Even the priests were not of the tribe of Levi, but the people made idols for themselves. All right, so there's the key. They made them for themselves. They disregarded what God said. All right, do you see that as an indicator of harlotry? I mean, when you put an idol in place, it's taken the place of God, isn't it? So that's what being harlotrous, is that a word? Being like a harlot is like. You trade one for the other. And so that's what they did. All right, how about C there? It says that there were also revolts. When you revolt against something, you challenge it. You decide that it's no longer appropriate and you want to protest it. Oh my, we see some of that today, don't we? People revolt against things they don't like. Did I give somebody chapter 5 and verse 2? Thank you.
The revolters are deeply involved in slaughter, so I rebuke them all.
Oh, wait a minute. The revolters are involved in slaughter. Okay, now it's getting even more graphic. Those who revolt against God. How can that be true? What are they slaughtering? Let's see if chapter 9 and verse 15 adds anything to that. Did I give that one out?
All their wickedness is in Gilgal, for there I hated them. Because of the evil of their deeds, I will drive them from my house. I will love them no more. All their princes are rebellious.
Rebellious. All right. So now think about what this says. Their princes, their leaders are rebellious. So it's not just the people going off on a tangent, and rioting and all that. It's the leaders that are also leading them that way. So, in what way is that a sign of harlotry?
Going against, I'd say, the agreement, that covenant that they had with God, but then also deciding that they're going to do their own way or justify their own actions.
Exactly.
So what authority are they looking to?
Yeah, they're not looking
collectively too as a group. This isn't just like an individual person. They're as a group, Like when you talk about revolt, you're usually talking about a group or a nation revolting against a king or revolting against the government.
Yeah.
And so they're an outward rebellion against God, their king.
Right. And Jeremy touched on it just a little bit. This rebellion or this revolting shows a resistance to authority. Whose authority were they revolting against? Well, God's authority. When a wife and husband are joined together, by whose authority is that? Well, it's God's authority, isn't it? And so if one or the other practices harlotry and goes off and takes up with other partners, then that's disregarding the authority of that relationship. So poor Hosea is probably seeing himself in all this, He's saying, oh, this is happening, and I can attest to how bad it is. Anything else there? Other thoughts about it? Stop me if you have a comment. I'm not in any rush. How about point D on our list here, which is pride. Let's take a look at that from chapter 5 and verse 5. Alana?
The pride of Israel testifies to his face. Therefore, Israel and Ephraim stumble in their iniquity. Judah also stumbles with them.
Okay. The pride of Israel testifies to his face. Sometimes the wording in this is a little hard for us to figure out. Well, what do you think that means when it says the pride testifies to his face? Now, generally in these Old Testament renderings, the face tells you about the person. If God turns his countenance, his face away from you, that tells us something. And like with people, sometimes we'll be told that their countenance changed, their face changed. They weren't looking at the same place, or maybe their very outlook changed. What about these pride of Israel? He says here, the prophet does, Israel and Ephraim stumble in their iniquity. Ephraim is another word for Israel. Ephraim was the largest tribe, so sometimes he uses that to mean Israel. So both Judah and Israel suffered from pride. How does that fit into harlotry taking place?
Well, pride is reliance on self or not looking to the other.
Yeah.
It's being, it's more than courageous. It's prideful or arrogant, you could say.
Arrogance, yeah. Pride. Another word for it is selfishness. When one partner in a relationship has that selfish attitude and says, well, I'm going to go do what I want to do, too bad for you. Well, that's what leads to that harlotry that he's describing. So the same thing happened with Judah and with Israel too. Their pride made them stubborn, made them selfish. And what they said was, we're going to do what we want to do. And we want to worship these idols. It's more fun. We're going to worship those idols, and we're going to do that. And so that pride is what got them into this situation. Excuse me. Let's go down to E there. Transgressing the covenant. Okay. Turn your page. Transgressing the covenant. Well, we'll read these scriptures in a moment, but what covenant are we talking about here?
Covenant between God and the Jewish people.
Right. It's the Old Testament law, isn't it?
For their obedience and then what God would do for them.
Mm-hmm. More specifically, probably the law of Moses. And when God made this covenant, we've studied the covenant before, and it always comes with two parts. It's what you're told to do, and you're carrying it out. Both parts have to be part of that covenant. And also the one making the covenant has to have the authority to do it and will provide what they promise too. All right, so let's take a look here. Chapter 6 and verse 7. Is that one out there?
But like men, they transgressed the covenant. They dealt treacherously with me.
Okay, transgress, to go beyond, to deal treacherously. And then chapter 7, verse 13.
Woe to them, for they have fled from me. Destruction to them, because they transgressed against me. Though I redeemed them, yet they have spoken lies against me.
Okay, and that right in there lies the real problem with transgressing the covenant. It's more than just breaking rules. I mean, that's part of it, but it's more than just breaking rules. It's transgressing that which redeemed them. God set his people aside. He told the Israelites, you're going to be a special people to me. And you read on up into the New Testament, what does God tell Christians?
Peculiar people, the priesthood.
Exactly. We're special people to him, and he has redeemed us from sin. He saved us from destruction. Well, what did God do for the Israelites? He saved them from their enemies. Sure, brought them out of captivity. All right, so they're not just breaking rules, they're turning their back on the whole principle of the thing. All right, let's see, 8 and 1.
Set the trumpet to your mouth. He shall come like an eagle against against the house of the Lord, because they have transgressed my covenant and rebelled against my law.
Okay. And then if you got verse 12 in that same chapter.
I have written for him the great things of my law, but they were considered a strange thing.
Okay. So both these passages here kind of tell us that when you transgress the covenant, you also disregard the law. And then those two kind of go together. But notice what verse 12 said there. I've written for him the great things of my law. God's law was great and wonderful. And what happened? The people considered all that a strange thing. They didn't see the value in it. They didn't see the logic in it. And so they transgressed it. All right. So what about this? How does that process fit with harlotry that's being described here? Any thoughts on that? Well, you take husband and wife, okay? What's their relationship supposed to be like?
Just be loving, caring, working together.
Well, yeah, that too. But what does Paul in Ephesians 5 say about it? It says, wives, you are to obey your husband. Be in subjection to your husbands. Because, he says, Christ is the head of the church and the husband is the head of the wife. There's some laws, in other words, that govern husband and wife relationships. Do we always like them? No, sometimes we don't. But those laws are there for a purpose, and it's not ours to question. God put them in place. But notice what happens here. In a real husband-wife relationship, when one or the other goes away and departs and goes into this harlotry activity, what happened? They're no longer obeying the rules of that engagement, the rules of that in what am I trying to say? That relationship, I guess, are set, and the one who leaves violates them. So the people of Israel did that. They had this wonderful relationship with God, and they considered all that to be a strange thing. They went away and didn't follow up with it, didn't continue. All right, and so that applies to human relationships. Maybe Hosea thought about that. Maybe his wife Gomer fled from him because she didn't want to obey him. She did not want to submit to his authority. Well, that was her choice, not his. He didn't drive her away. She just left. All right. Any other comments there? Questions or thoughts? Let's make our way down to letter F then, which is speaking lies against God. Okay. Let's see if I can turn that one here. There we go. This is from chapter 7 and verse 13. Did I get that one out there any place? I think I stopped with that one.
We read it on E too.
Sorry?
We read it on E.
Yeah, I can read it.
Oh, okay. Well, let's all turn to that one in chapter 7, verse 13. And we'll go ahead and take a look at how that applies. Brother Taylor uses this as a kind of backup scripture for it. And he says here, woe to them, for they have fled from me. Destruction to them, because they have transgressed against me. Though I redeemed them, yet they have spoken lies against me. And we've used that one before, but notice what he says here. This destruction is coming because they rebelled against God. They transgressed, and they're speaking lies against him. What always happens usually when there's some kind of a breakup in a human marriage?
Well, there's one side, the other side, and the truth.
Yeah, there are plenty of lies flying, aren't they? If you've ever been involved in the middle of some conflict like that, you know that like Jeremy says, there's this story and that one, and the truth is in there in the middle someplace. But wait, this is different. These are characteristics of one who has departed from God. So now they've left God, and the only way they can justify their action is by telling lies. Think about that. People of Israel left God behind. What kind of lies were they telling?
I would say that lies also speak to, they would worship these idols and all that, but then, oh yeah, we need to do something for God too. But a lot of it was, you could say, a show or action, but not out of love or true devotion.
Right. They would tell, well, they would lie to themselves and say, we're worshiping. Yeah, we're worshiping. We're just doing it in this way here. We love God. And they would tell God that. We love you. But their actions would say different, right? Their lies would be in what they do more so than what they say. But it could be in what they say as well.
There's a lot in Ezekiel about false prophets too. There was, like I said, the land was just ridden with them.
Yeah.
God said, I never said these things, and you're saying that I say them. And
right.
There's a lot of lying going on about.
Oh. Yeah. Well, prophets would do that, wouldn't they? And why? Why would prophets speak lies like that?
Power and money, but it's to sway the people one way or the other.
Elevate themselves, sway the people's attitude toward them. And so that's been a problem. Now, Hosea wanted to make sure that the people knew he wasn't lying, that he was telling the truth. And he goes on and tells them in several places that because you've done these things, that's why this destruction is coming on you. All right, we've got about 1 minute left. And let's look at that last one there, which is G. And if you think about it, we could probably find some others that were characteristics of harlotry. But this one here is from chapter 11 and verse 7. So let's take a look there real quick. It relates to continually turning back from God. My people are bent on backsliding from me. Though they call to the Most High, none at all exalt him. Well, that's pretty clear, isn't it? Backsliding means to do what?
Slip back.
Slide back.
Bad habit was, or whatever the issue.
Yeah, that's where the name comes from. You go back to what you were before. And so people who are backsliding, he says, my people are bent on it. You ever heard that term used? Somebody just bent on making a mistake. They're going to do it no matter what. And that's what these people were like. They were continually turning back from God. And the thing is, God tried to stop them. He gave them many signs. He would send plagues and pestilence among them. He would send them these prophets to explain the real way to them, and they didn't listen. They continually turned their back on God. And because of that, then, they fit that pattern that the prophet, that Brother Taylor in this part labels harlotry. Okay, well, we're out of time for this evening. But does anybody have anything else that popped up? Any insights that you might see there? Thank you then for your help. And we did get this recording to go a little ways, so there may be some who are able to see it after the fact. But we're going to start with point 3 there under the setting next time. And so read ahead, look up the scriptures, and we may have some more to hand out when we get to that part. Thank you very much for your attention, and we appreciate your participation. Those who are watching online, please put your comments in on the YouTube channel and let us know if you have any questions. And I apologize for losing the first part of this, but maybe you got enough of what we talked about to get together with us on this lesson. So give me just a second here.